So, Vancouver again. Well, I will say this, they're making a lot of news. And that's a good thing, right? This is one of those videos I'm going to make, and people are going to make a lot of comments. There's going to be a lot of comments about a proper rebuild. I'm going to start this way. The best time to get rid of the Sedins would have been before they signed their current contract. At that point, they were still relatively high-scoring forwards. They were still top liners in the NHL. They were still damn good players. The Canucks re-signed them, brought them back. And since then, I've said we're saddled with them. Today, Jim Benning came out and he kind of trolled all of us. My Instagram and my Facebook kind of blew up. People asking me, what's going on? Benning says he's got a big announcement about the future of the Sedins. The announcement was nothing. The announcement was kind of what I've been saying all along. There is no active plan to trade Henrik and Daniel. It's left open that if the Sedins at some point go to Jim Benning and say, we'd like to explore our chance at winning a Stanley Cup somewhere else, that they'll do it. Here's the thing. Let's be honest. So Henrik scores 50 points last year, and I think Daniel scores 44. They had their worst seasons offensively in almost 15 years. Both of them. Henrik and Daniel have been 1 and 2 in terms of the best players the Canucks have ever had. I'd put them 1 and 2, Roberto Luongo number 3, Marcus Naslund number 4. Leave your hate in the comment section below. I'd leave Bure at number 5. I think they've been great ambassadors for the team, for the city, and they've been here for a very, very long time. I also think Henrik and Daniel, after their retirement, could be very useful to have still with the organization in some way, shape, or form. I still think there's a chance they get moved at the deadline, but they will make that decision, not Benning. I'm okay with that. And I'm okay with that for this reason. How many players retire having played their entire career with one team, and fan bases scream we should have traded them while we could get something back? I don't remember Colorado saying it with Joe Sakic. I don't remember Detroit saying it with Steve Yzerman. And I don't remember Boston fans saying, oh, I'm glad we traded Ray Bourque. Bourque should have retired a Bruin. Glad he got a cup in Colorado, but he should have retired a Bruin. Canuck fans are going to say, well, we can get something back for the Sedins. The problem is, based on their production from this past season, and their age, and the fact that they've clearly lost a step, and they were never the most fleet of foot forwards to start with. Their game relied on the cycle and puck control, not on speed. But now that their speed's dropped a little bit more, and that cycle's a little easier to predict, because they've slowed down, their value has dropped. Realistically, what do you get back for Henrik and Daniel? Not a lot. You're not going to get a lot back. I think whenever you look at trading a player, you have to look at risk-reward. Is there a risk in trading the Sedins if you're the Canucks right now? Not really. I mean, unless fans think we're going for the playoffs or a wild card spot. Is there a reward? I'd argue that also is a not really. People will say, well, you'd get a prospect and you'd get a draft pick. From who? The Rangers? Are the Rangers going to give up one of their top-notch prospects for the Sedins? No. Are they going to give up a first-round draft pick? No. Not next year. And I think that's the biggest point I can make here. is that, yes, having the Sedins on this team means we might win more games than we would if they were gone and we had a Magna and Chaput taking their place in the lineup. But realistically, even with the Sedins last year, this team was pretty bad. And in the offseason, they haven't upgraded their goaltending. They haven't upgraded the blue line. Offense, I would argue, is better, but not better to the point where they're in a playoff conversation. So I don't have a problem with the Sedins being here. I want to see Daniel score his 1,000th point as a Canuck. Hopefully he doesn't get hurt. Hopefully he reaches that point. I want to see them retire as Canucks. There's something to that. Like I said, Yzerman and Sakic being the obvious ones that played for one organization their entire career. I know Sakic played in Quebec and Colorado, and some people get their panties in a bunch because it's two different cities. It's the same organization. And there's something to be said for those guys, and the fact that they're both GMs right now. Sakic's been middling at best. Yzerman's been good. There's something to be said for the idea that after the Sedins are done as players, they could stay in Vancouver, either as ambassadors for the team, or maybe they'd get into scouting, maybe they'd get into conditioning, maybe they'd... whatever. There's numerous things that Henrik and Daniel could continue to do for the Vancouver Canucks in retirement. And for me, I really think that there's an optic to this that's good. Yeah, no, the team's in the crapper. The team was bad last year. Odds are they're bad this year. I get that. But for guys to have that kind of longevity, there's kids that are going to be drafted this coming year who won't know anything other than the Sedins having always been Canuck property because the Canucks were drafted before they were born. The Canucks are in an interesting position right now. And I don't think that trading out the Sedins to get back a B prospect or a second-round draft pick is going to be the deal breaker. What the Canucks need, what they don't have, is a franchise player. I like Horvat. He's my favorite player. He's not a franchise player. He's not Kane and he's not Taves. He's not Malkin or Crosby, clearly. Horvat essentially should be a second-line center, and we can debate whether or not Pettersson's going to be that guy, but I state still that the Canucks don't have that franchise player. And trading the Sedins doesn't bring back that franchise player. You don't get a future franchise player for the Sedins right now. Maybe 3 years ago, you would have got a first-round draft pick and a prospect, and you would have got some kind of really sweet deal for them as a rental. But are the Canucks in a better position right now or worse position? And we can debate that all day. I respect Benning for doing this. I think it's ridiculous, though, that it was made out to be this big dramatic thing when it clearly wasn't. This is more of the Canucks staying the course. And it's not about ignoring the rebuild. It's not. It's what do you get back for what you give up? And if it's not worth it, you don't do it. And it doesn't matter if you're in rebuild mode or not. Nobody is paying for the Sedins. Here's the thing. I always see guys saying, well, trade the Sedins, trade the Sedins, trade the Sedins. I've seen it for years. And I've always said, who do you trade them to? Which team wants them right now? You're going to have to look for a team with a lot of cap space. What are they willing to give up? Is it worth it to both teams to make the trade? Not just that team. Is it worth it to the Canucks to make that trade? And if the answer is no, it doesn't happen. You take into consideration that Jim Benning is not shopping the Sedins. You take into consideration the Sedins don't want to move. So now you're making a move to appease fans who still won't be happy after. Because when you trade franchise players, you usually don't get franchise players back. It's very, very rare. And if anybody who's a Calgary fan wants to say, well, we traded Nieuwendyk and we got back Jarome Iginla, I would answer with, thank you for Joe Nieuwendyk. He was very helpful in the 1999 Stanley Cup run of the Dallas Stars. That's why that move was made. Dallas knew damn well what they were giving up in Jarome Iginla. The Sedins are not Joe Nieuwendyk. It's a completely different situation. And you can't trade them to a team that lacks forwards and say, well, they could go to New Jersey. No. New Jersey doesn't want the Sedins. Not for the price they'd have to give up. They're not giving up a first-round draft pick for the Sedins. Not at 36, 37. It's not going to happen. I think the thing that I always try to do with this channel, and I always try to do in general, is be realistic. So that's why I don't get into a lot of the trade speculation. And people are asking me all the time about Duchesne, what Duchesne's going to do. I don't know. All I know is a lot of the trade proposals that people make are terrible. And it's not any one person in particular. It's the online. We've been playing NHL games that EA Sports has been making for a decade now, and this is what it takes to get a star player. This is what you get when you trade a star player. And it's just ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. So, as I said, I don't think it's worth it for the Canucks. I will do a video on what star players get you in trades and whether or not those trades ultimately are worth it. And I know people are going to argue that I'm wrong. I know people are going to argue I'm wrong on this video. But again, there's nothing wrong with having the Sedins play out their career in Vancouver this year. It'll be a nice story. If they retire at the end of the year, awesome. If they don't, they'll get a pay cut, and they'll be good bottom six guys. And playing bottom 6 minutes from next year forward would be just fine. Because, to me, their conditioning has always been good, their work ethic's always been good, and they've always been good team players. They didn't complain when they were young, and they were brought along slowly, and it took years before the Canucks showed any faith in them offensively. And the fans were on them, and media was on them, and they never once whined and complained about it. So, there's that. You guys can let me know what you think in the comments section below. I think today was just another example of how the Canucks are staying the course. But you guys can let me know what you think. Thank you very much for watching. Hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through, and I'll talk to you again soon.